Welcome to Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's session of Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. And I am delighted that today's pro is someone I think you all know, and if you don't, you will shortly. My good friend and yours, Heidi Pattie. And Pattie, we've known each other for years. I just think you're the greatest, and it is so delightful to have you on our podcast where we will find out even more about you. So welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you, Les.
No, I'm honored that you were able to carve out some time and get here. And as we were talking before we went on air, you had to fight the elements and the rising rivers and all sorts of natural disasters to be here, but we finally got this all arranged. So let's start where we always start with our podcast, is about your current role, your current position, what you do now, and sort of what you find most interesting about it.
Wonderful. So I am the Vice President of Business Development at InfoCheck Solutions. We're run out of Burbank, California. It is a very all-encompassing role. I think business development holds many hats. It's an exciting role. It encompasses what you would think of with sales and the like, but it also is a huge piece of product development. I do most of the marketing and social media. It also entails doing all of the exciting things that PBSA offers, all the shows and the details of the excitement, even down to the cool little pins that they allowed me to have put together. And then it's a really neat role. And like I said, I get to hold a lot of positions in one, which can be overwhelming sometimes, but it's very fulfilling in the same breath.
So there's never a boring minute, one day to the next, 1 hour to the next, sometimes 1 minute to the next, right?
Exactly, right? Because you know what's new and what's next. Absolutely. And I really like that. If you don't know me yet, and as we get to know me, I'm very much built like that. So that works well for me and for the people that employ me.
Oh, that's great. So you're the Energizer Bunny of the screening industry. You just keep on going and going. Yeah, that's fantastic. So that, of course, didn't happen overnight. I know you've been involved in the screening industry for a while. Why don't you tell us about the path, how you started out, where you started out? I don't think you, in junior high school, said, I want to be a background screener, but at some point you got involved in the industry and now you're very involved. Tell us about that.
Yes. No, I didn't. That wasn't on the little chart. There was lots of different things. This was not it. I didn't even know this was an option. So, who knew? But found myself out of land development in Florida at a time when you would have imagined back in like 06, 07, as that was balancing out. I went over and took an interview with this guy named Bill Bollinger, who ran this little background check company out of Ocala, Florida, where I lived. And I went there, and just as time and chance would have it, I became the customer service manager. And we'll speed this story up pretty quickly. In 9 months, they moved the entire operations division from Maryland to Ocala, to which I oversaw, which was all the county work, landlord tenant. I helped alongside of the database and, you name it. And we did it in that area.
And so that was NBD, National Background Data.
NBD.
Right.
That's National Background Data that was, then acquired. And now today would be a portion of CoreLogic.
Okay. Right.
And during my tenure there, it became CoreLogic. And then throughout my career there, that just developed into director of operations. As I said, CoreLogic took over, which that was great. But that brought a lot of changes. And at the end, I believe it was the vice president of sales or something of that nature for the last bit of my tenure. But the vast majority was in operations, overseeing all those various divisions. And which took me to Convergence Research, where I helped them develop their business and bring them to nationwide and all the data pieces that they employ today.
And that was with Tom, right? Was Tom there at the time?
So Tom had retired. Tom Irvin, rest in peace. He had retired, and Drew and Steven were like, what do we got to do something. We need that person, that face, if you will. And Tom's like, you should reach out to Heidi. Next thing you know, the three of them got together. We spoke at PBSA, used to be NAPBS one time, and the rest is history. I went there for 3 years and did some really great work with those gentlemen. They're a wonderful team over there. Brilliant men, just truly brilliant and really forward thinkers. And I really enjoyed all my time there. They're great guys.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, it was really fun. And that's here in Ohio, which is silly too. Exactly. Yeah.
And that's where you're at now. You're in Ohio now.
I am in Ohio now. I was in Florida working for them, and now I'm in Ohio.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, like many people have ridden that train of acquisitions, mergers, name changes, and then as the world turns, things tend to happen, right? And things change.
Oh, they did. And then I went over to Innovative and helped them for a few months before there. Speaking of major acquisition to Acris, stayed there for a year until their major acquisitions, which we know today as Equifax.
Okay. So
that was just before COVID during COVID. And then I took a few years off to care for my son.
Fantastic. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So of all the industries that you said you had not heard of background screening, obviously it was not on career day. It was not a box you can check. Now that you're in it, tell us what you like about your career in the background screening industry, what you enjoy about it, and what it's brought you.
It has brought me more than I could have ever expected out of a career, to be very honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't expect to be, you're doing I'm going to be in customer service. I'd done that for years before, which then has turned into this career that spans just shy of 20 years. I have traveled and seen more courthouses and cities and towns and met more people of so many backgrounds that I could have ever imagined. And I have enjoyed all of that journey. I mean, from sitting outside in the freezing cold to the Harlem courts in New York to outside of the LA courts, you name it, and inside of them and everywhere in between. It's not only offered me just to see all the United States and to meet all sorts of people, but I've learned so much about our wonderful and not so wonderful sometimes criminal justice system. I've met so many people in the industry that are so passionate about things to which I am very passionate about, which has been able to align what I really believe in is, always keeping the right people where they belong and mostly, protecting our most at-risk people. And that's what's always driven me. And I've been able to find that here and to promote the right things and to promote doing things the right way as much as I ever can and influence that. And so that's been very fulfilling these many years. And I will just touch one more time upon the people that I have met. You most definitely are one of them. The kindness and familial-like behavior that people have in this industry is not like any other that I've ever experienced. And it has sustained me in many times throughout these 20 years, to which I am eternally grateful.
So we should unpack that because that's a lot. So part of it is that it's almost like the Johnny Cash song, I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. So you can name all sorts of cities that you've been to. All right. You've probably been to every city in that song, just getting court records, figuring out how things are doing. That's fantastic. And then you find background screening a way to balance your concerns for safety and security, on the other hand, with giving people a second chance. So accuracy and the proper use of information and so forth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it really sounds like the third part of what you were saying was it's like the relationships you made and the friendships that have really helped sustain you. And I usually ask, what role has PBSA played in all that, where and then the people you meet and the friendships and so forth?
I'm sitting here because of that, right? I'm talented, and I know that. But talent only goes so far if it's not in the right spotlight.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the place to put it, if you don't have that canvas, I can be the most talented person in the world.
Right.
But PBSA, I hear people say this all the time. It gives you back as much as you give into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have given, since the first show I went to, my heart and soul. I am authentic. I try to help in every way with anybody, and I try to get the help that I need there as well. And those relationships aren't just those few days. They last after that. And I have set on that since my first one. And because of that, I have met these people. I have had opportunities that I wouldn't have had it just been without PBSA. I know that.
Do you remember your first PBSA show? Do you remember where and when? Do you have a memory of that? They blend together after a while. It's hard to remember, which year, which city.
I did have that down in my head. I am almost 100% positive that it was in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay, great.
At that Native American casino. It was right attached to, it was very small and intimate. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do. So the very first one was in Scottsdale. That was at a Hilton, but then there was a later one.
Right, I didn't go to that one.
Yeah,
right.
And then the later one you're talking about. Absolutely. Right, exactly. Oh, okay, that's
That
great.
was my first.
Okay.
That was my first. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I just was like, I got to meet all these people that I had been speaking to on the phone, which was just great. And, so much of the time in business, you don't get that.
Right.
It's always just the phone. And then as time has come, it's video like we're on.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
great.
exactly.
It was great. It added such a level to my understanding of this industry and, frankly, my professional development in this industry.
And of course, during COVID, we had to go back to the Zoom
Right.
meetings and this sort of thing. But again, the relationships you build, you're able to get through COVID, basically.
Right.
Because you had relationships with people beforehand. Yeah, exactly. And I did not make the show in Boston this year, but
I saw that.
know that you were there, and it looked like everyone had a great time. You guys had a booth at the ball game. Right.
We did. We had a couple skyboxes. It was fantastic.
I think if I had known there was a chance to see you go to the skybox, I may have tried to convince my wife to let me sneak out of the house for a couple of days just to see the ball game, but not in the cards this year.
Maybe
But,
next time.
Yeah, next time it's in Anaheim, which is Southern California, but basically, it's across the street for me. So hopefully that we'll have to see.
Yeah.
Let me turn from background screening and PBSA, and let's talk about Heidi Pattie outside of background screening. We sometimes forget we all have lives that have nothing to do with background screening. And this podcast is a chance for people to find out a little bit more about the people behind the screen. So tell us, outside of background screening, whatever you would like to share, hobbies, interests, what you do for fun, what takes up your time and attention, what other passions you have that I want people to know about.
Sure. Well, the biggest thing that takes my most time and my attention is my little boy. I have a 7-year-old, Ronan. He is the center of my universe as a single mother, but just in general. He's a medically needy child, so that is my passion on top of that, to be his voice, as he doesn't quite have one yet at 7. And so I'm his constant advocate, and in turn advocating for others, because so many of those that don't have a voice need those that do. But when I am not doing that, which is sometimes a little too heavy, I go out and have as much fun as I can ever have, and that's by going to concerts.
Oh, okay. Tell us about that.
Look at that. Let's say, there you go. Yes, I mean, since I'm a little girl, concerts are my thing. Music is my absolute passion. I go see Debbie Gibson all the time. I just saw her a couple days ago. Love all sorts. I mean, over the summer, I probably saw 30 concerts.
Wow.
I love it. It is also what sustains me.
Well, now, I assume they're not all in Ohio, so you must get on planes, trains, and automobiles and go yonder and far to catch these things.
On occasion, I do. And a lot of times I'm lucky enough to time and place. If I'm out, I travel often for work, right? I just came back. And while I was away, I saw 2 concerts because 2 of the evenings I had available. And so I happened to be in California, happened to be in Las Vegas. Boom, boom. Couple concerts.
So you can jump on a ticket site and grab a ticket.
Last minute tickets.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, you bet. So I don't travel a ton just for concerts, but sometimes I do. I have been known. This year was one of the years I went to Jamaica to see Hanson. And this is where everybody turns off the podcast. I'm super sorry about that. And then I went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, and during which I went and saw Debbie Gibson. So I'm trying to live my best life while also being the best mom and employee I can be and all the things, You only live once, right, Les?
You only live once, and those are lots of hats. So I have to ask, since you're a concert goer, I've heard the name Taylor Swift. Apparently, she's a popular musician.
Yeah.
Right. Have you had a chance to see her?
Popular. I have not seen her before. I would go see her. Absolutely. She seems like she would be an amazing performer. Absolutely. I've seen everyone from Barbra Streisand to, and like 4 or 5 times with her. I've gotten to see lots of people. So Taylor would be great to see.
And you don't mind, to me, maybe just because, I'm lazy, but parking and lines to the bathrooms. But I guess if you love the music, none of that phases you. That's just part of the experience.
It's just part of it. Yeah. It literally just lights me up. I got to tell you. Yeah. I'll stand in a line. I'll stand in the heat over the summer for the amphitheater seats. And I do it again in a minute.
Oh, that's
In a minute.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
I really just
wow.
have the best time. It is my thing.
Well, I can see
really
that
is.
that has lightened you up already.
So there you go. It really does.
and not to hit an emotionally charged subject, but for the advocacy, you mentioned that you advocate for other children as well. Is that on an organized basis? Do you belong to a group that does that, or how does that work?
My little boy has a thing called PANDAS, like the bear. So, and anyone can get it actually.
Wow.
So there's a nice scary part. Well, it comes from complications from strep throat. And it
Oh,
is not enough well known. So we are not we are a structured yet not structured, not focused parent group that it's the Parents for Pandas. And we try to advocate so that because it's not nationally recognized, although tens of thousands of neurotypical and non-neurotypical children and adults have it. And so we just try to advocate. We try to get the word out literally right here and now, right? Who knows that somebody that's listening to this doesn't have a child that has pandas and they know something that I don't, or I know something that they don't. They can certainly just find me and reach out because it's very much an underknown thing and it's debilitating. It causes early onset schizophrenia for children. It causes people to not be able to function in life at any level. So that is the advocacy I do. It is not necessarily, like I said, structured. We got a Facebook group, you know what I mean? And things like that. And we really try to get the word out.
so if someone has a family member affected by that particular condition or any other condition, sometimes I think they're called orphan diseases that aren't, there's not a mass market, so maybe there's not as much medical emphasis on it, but they can contact you about that and learn how to become an advocate for people with.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Please.
Oh,
I have the easiest email in the world, HeidiPattie@gmail.com.
Okay. HeidiPattie@gmail.com. Well, that's great to know. So, okay. So you have put the word out, and it's good for people to know. You never know how connections are made or how people are touched.
No, you don't.
Okay.
And that's the reason we're in Ohio, this is the best place for him. It's the reason I left everything behind in Florida.
Right.
Was him. It's the number one reason we're here. They do wonderful here in Ohio.
Yeah, it joins me in wishing you the best and the best of luck for both of you. That's really interesting. And the next question we have, although I think you may have answered it, is tell us something interesting about yourself that you feel is important for people to know who they may not know. And I guess you've talking about Parents for Panda really fits that, something people should know about.
That I was the special needs mom. That's besides, Heidi that works at InfoCheck and that likes to go out for concerts. That really is secondary to the most important thing, which is being Ronan's mom and his advocate and just making sure that he has the best opportunities in life.
I think for all of us,
it's kind of baked in from,
Okay.
We all have for our children. Some of us, we just have to kind of do a little differently. Like everyone's path doesn't look the same. And I've learned that as a first-time parent later in life. And that's okay that they don't all look the same. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just still kind of figuring it out because there's no real path for this one. So
there's no roadmap. There's no proven path.
We are out there. We're out there with the machetes making the path. So
wow. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and I appreciate you sharing that. And that's
my pleasure. Thank you for allowing me.
No, great information and anything we can do. So we're getting close to our finish here. We're going to do what I sometimes call the speed round. And when we have an industry veteran such as yourself that has seen it all and been everywhere, sometimes we get perspectives that people that are new to the industry may not think about or may not have encountered. And so just sort of off the top of your head, doesn't have to be anything, deep or, with PowerPoints or anything, but just from your point of view, from what you've seen and your understanding of the background screening world, what do you see as sort of the top issues that the background screening industry needs to address or challenges that we'll see in the future? I'm retired, but for people that are still involved in those sort of things, what's your sort of top ahead immediate response?
I would say, the technology piece is scaring me. I feel like technology is absolutely necessary and has been for years. And frankly, everybody's been using it for years. They just haven't said, which is cool, whatever. But now we use it and everyone's really out about it. And I have a really bad feeling, and I've seen it already, is that it's too technology, that we have lost all the human aspect, much, not all, that's true, much of the human aspect that is absolutely necessity in providing court records. Like you have to have people looking at things. It cannot be all automated. Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. And it is in so many cases. And that leads to so many incorrect false positives and false negatives. And that's not good for our industry. It's not good for anybody, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, when you get a reputation for not being accurate. But what about the idea that eventually algorithms and machine learning, and if you get enough information, the number of errors that AI might make, for example, could lessen with the more it knows. It's just that there's so much to know.
Right, exactly. So we're learning technology. And I've talked about that since many years, but you have to have the right people teaching it.
Right. Yeah.
And there it is. Make sure that the right people are in the right rooms teaching that machine to learn the correct way. And that's not an overnight situation. And yet people are rolling it out like it is. So
Yeah.
it's concerning, right? If there's thought put into it with anything, you can create something good, but you have to have the right people in the rooms.
Right. And even if you teach it correctly, it can change tomorrow.
Right. That's the other thing, that constant learning, right?
Yeah.
Because those sites are constantly changing and they're doing that to mess it up, right?
Yeah.
Because they're counting on it's not a human being doing it anymore, right? They're counting on some machine that didn't think of that thing, which is, again, technology is super important, but a human aspect is just necessity. It just is still. Until we are all integrated with, interlaced with these courts, which how long will that be less? I mean, come on. When private and public go in and every, well, you can have, no. Until that happens, the vast majority of them are going to continually try to make it to break it.
Right.
It's in their interest.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people for years, every court's its own empire, and there's, thousands of courts and judges and clerks and systems. And people forget that the criminal justice system was not created for the purpose of helping the background industry. That's
no, it's not unified.
Yeah.
Right. They're working against us in every possible way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we're piggybacking on a system that's meant to enhance criminal justice, not built for the purposes of information retrieval of useful and actual information for employers. So, I mean, as a former criminal prosecutor and attorney, the criminal justice system was built for me in that role. It wasn't built for us in our role as screeners. So, yeah.
Right. It just wasn't. And then they know we're using it. So now they're employing technology to break it for us. Right.
No, I've attended a number of conferences where, court clerks and the head of records statewide. And there is this kind of culture in that world that they somehow think that background screeners are making money off their work, not understanding that we're not making money off their work. The background screening industry, the value that it provides is doing a service for employers, but they still have this sense that somehow background screeners are piggybacking off our efforts and monetizing something.
They don't like that.
Yeah, they don't like that at all. And so there is that, and you try to educate them as best you can, but there's still that. And I'm not casting dispersion anymore. I'm just saying that's just my viewpoint of the world. I've seen that attitude being prevalent among people in charge of public records at the state level, county levels, that these are our records, and why should you make money off of public records? I mean, what's that all about? And we try to explain it. And it's a long conversation. All right.
Oh, it is. Did you used to go to those Courtroom 21 shows up there, right, at William and Mary College, where we would look and, try to advocate for ourselves? I mean, Melissa Sorensen would be in those rooms, and Jay Harris, myself, Joe Davidson, and they would just be like, we were the devil. Like they didn't want us. So they would advocate against us, no matter what kind of goodness we were showing and goodwill. In many courts, it does not play at all.
Well, and so for anyone listening that is, providing technology, and this is good input. I hope people, hopefully it might be helpful for somebody, but who knows? And here's a question that might be helpful to people. So for those folks that are either thinking of entering the industry or are sort of at the start of it, or maybe they have 4 or 5 years in, but maybe they're looking at other opportunities, or maybe that because of mergers and acquisitions, there's been a reduction of force. And, as we get more, as it becomes a more developed industry, we see that kind of thing happening. What's your advice to people that are thinking of, should I enter this industry? Should I stay in this industry? How do I grow in this industry? How do I make a place for myself here and get the type of advantages you got? What would you tell people, sort of off the top of your head?
Well, that's a good question, and it's definitely a different answer than it would have been many years ago. And you're right, mergers and acquisitions have definitely changed our industry. I would always encourage, people that are passionate about what we do to come to our industry, but I think that's a really important piece to it. Because if you're just coming in for a quick cash grab, it's not here anymore. It just isn't. You have to work yourself into this industry. You have to work your way up. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to learn. You have to, again, it's all about the people. Get into PBSA, start going to the various webinars, get to the shows if you can in person, meet people, try to get on boards, do everything you can to learn as much as you can, but know that you've got to do that on your own. You've got to go into it knowing that you're going to have to carve out your own place and sit out amongst all the others. Because when those mergers and acquisitions come, it's going to be the personal relationships and your personality in this industry that will sustain you.
It really comes down to making yourself valuable, right? I mean, if you can add valuable or be valuable by doing the things you said, acquiring knowledge, acquiring relationships, acquiring experiences, that's where it is from your history and viewpoint. Yeah,
absolutely. It is absolutely how I am sitting here today with you. No question. No question. Because I've held every seat from customer service to CEO and everywhere in between. Yes, it is absolutely getting myself out there and learning everything I can.
Oh, fantastic. That's great advice. And any closing thoughts that you want to share? It's all yours.
Well, thank you. I just appreciate the time and the platform and you letting me mention that thing about my little boy. That's very kind of you. And our relationship all these almost 20 years, I cherish that, Les. Thank you for your time today. Truly. I really do appreciate it.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. Heidi Pattie, fantastic. And I learned a lot. There's a lot of people in this industry. We're going to have podcasts with people I don't know, that I've never met before, people like you, people I've known for a long time. And I always learn something new. I can remember, before my, retirement, thinking I had reached a point where, I pretty much know it. And then you go to work the next day and boom, 2 or 3 things comes up and I don't have the foggiest idea what the answer is. And that every single day. And no matter how much I know, I come out the other side thinking, God, there's so much I don't know. So it's always that, I think you put the hammer on the nail. It's just that sense of curiosity and always questioning and learning and creating value. So that's fantastic. So folks, this has been Heidi Pattie, who has been with us on Behind the Screens Conversations with a background screening pro and today's pro. Heidi, I thank you for joining us.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Les.
Thank you. All right, that was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.